Deep in the rolling hills and shadowy backroads of Kentucky lie secrets many don't know about. From bizarre weather phenomena to disappearances that defy explanation, these are stories that linger. Tonight we're exploring 6 chilling true mysteries from deep within Kentucky. If you like getting lost in the unknown, hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications, because you won't want to miss what we've uncovered. The Pope Lick Monster, Kentucky's most terrifying legend. Just outside Louisville, hidden behind quiet neighborhoods and thick woods, stands one of Kentucky's strangest and most feared landmarks, the Pope Lick Trestle. At first glance, it's nothing more than an old, narrow railroad bridge that stretches high over Pope Lick Creek. But for decades, this bridge has been home to one of the most chilling legends in the state, the story of the Pope Lick Monster. The creature is said to be part man, part goat, a tall, pale figure with twisted horns, glowing eyes, and cloven hooves that echo when it walks across the concrete. No one knows exactly when the legend began, but stories go back to the 1940s. Locals claimed they heard strange screams in the woods at night. Others said they saw a horned figure standing on the trestle during storms. And a handful swore they came face to face with something inhuman hiding beneath the bridge. What makes the Pope Lick Monster different from most American cryptids is the power people believe it has. According to the legend, the creature can lure its victims onto the trestle. Some say it mimics voices, calling out to people in a tone that sounds familiar, almost comforting. Others say it uses hypnosis, creating an overwhelming urge to climb onto the bridge. Whatever the explanation, the result is the same. For reasons they can't understand, people end up on one of the most dangerous railroad structures in Kentucky. And that danger is real. The trestle is not abandoned. It's an active rail line. When a train comes, there is almost no room to escape and no time to react. Over the decades, several people have died after climbing the trestle. Some thrill seekers chasing the legend, others simply curious. Every tragedy only fuels the belief that something is drawing people up there. There are many versions of the creature's backstory. One says it was once a circus performer, mistreated because of his appearance, who escaped after a train wreck near the trestle. Another claims it's a demonic figure tied to the land itself. Some believe it's a cryptid that has lived in the woods far longer than the railroad has existed. No matter which version you hear, they all end the same way. The creature waits beneath the bridge, protecting its territory and luring those who come too close. Even today, people claim to see strange things around Pope Lick Creek. A tall, horned silhouette watching from the woods. Footsteps on the gravel when no one else is around. A voice calling their name from somewhere near the bridge. And every so often, someone reports a feeling they can't explain. A sudden pull toward the trestle, as if they were meant to climb it. Whether it's a dangerous legend, mass hysteria, or something supernatural hidden in the trees, the Pope Lick Monster remains one of Kentucky's most chilling mysteries. A creature tied not just to folklore, but to real tragedies. And in a quiet corner of Louisville, where the bridge stands high and the woods fall silent, some people swear the monster is still waiting. The Kentucky Meat Shower. On March 3, 1876, the quiet farming community of Olympia Springs, Kentucky became the center of one of the strangest mysteries in American history. It was late morning, the sky was clear, and a woman named Mrs. Crouch was outside making soap in her yard. Nothing unusual, until she felt something soft strike her shoulder. She looked down and froze. On the ground beside her was a piece of raw meat. Before she could react, more pieces began drifting from the sky, thin flakes of red flesh, falling gently like snow. Some were small as coins, others as large as a hand. The sky stayed blue and calm, but the shower continued for nearly 2 minutes, covering the Crouch property with dozens of pieces of freshly cut meat. News spread fast. Neighbors rushed over, stunned to see chunks of flesh scattered across the yard, the fence, the garden, everywhere. A few of the braver men even tasted it, claiming it resembled mutton or venison. Others insisted it looked like beef. No one could explain how it had gotten there. Soon, newspapers across the country were reporting on what they called the Kentucky Meat Shower. Scientists requested samples, and several small pieces were sent to laboratories. Under the microscope, the tissue appeared to be animal muscle, cartilage, and in some cases, lung tissue. But that only deepened the mystery. How had animal flesh fallen from a perfectly clear sky? Eventually, a theory emerged, one that many scientists still consider the closest thing to an explanation. Vultures. When vultures are startled or preparing to take flight, they sometimes vomit the contents of their stomachs to become lighter. If a flock had been flying overhead and suddenly panicked, they could have expelled partially digested meat, which drifted downward over the Crouch farm. It was a disgusting idea, but possible. Yet even this theory leaves questions. Witnesses said the meat fell slowly, fluttering like snowflakes, not at all like something thrown from a bird's stomach. And no one recalled seeing vultures in the sky that day. The weather was calm, clear, and silent. To this day, no definitive explanation has ever been proven. More than a century later, the Kentucky meat shower remains one of the most bizarre, unexplained events in American folklore. A moment when raw meat literally fell from the sky, leaving behind a mystery that still baffles historians and scientists. Whatever happened that day in 1876, it was unlike anything Kentucky had ever seen. The Hopkinsville Goblins. In the small town of Hopkinsville, Kentucky, something terrifying happened one night in 1955. A night that would go down in UFO lore as the Kelly Hopkinsville encounter. It all began when the Sutton family, living on a remote farm, noticed strange lights flickering outside their home. At first, they thought it might be a prank or someone passing through, but soon, they realized this was something far more sinister. Shortly after dark, the family claimed they saw small, humanoid creatures outside, described as less than 4 feet tall, with glowing eyes, long pointed ears, and spindly limbs. These beings seemed almost otherworldly. The Suttons were terrified, but instead of fleeing, they armed themselves with guns and tried to defend their home. What followed was a chaotic standoff that lasted several hours. The creatures reportedly darted from tree to tree, sometimes disappearing completely, only to reappear moments later at a window or near the farmhouse. The family described them as moving with unnatural speed and making eerie, high-pitched noises. They didn't just appear once. They came in waves, attacking the house in a way that made the Suttons fear for their lives. By the time the night ended, the family claimed to have fired hundreds of rounds at the goblin-like entities. When daylight arrived, there was no sign of them, but the damage to the property was real, and the Suttons were left shaken. Neighbors were skeptical, but others reported seeing strange lights in the sky that same night. The incident was investigated by both the local police and Air Force officials. While some skeptics suggested that the family had mistaken owls or other animals for aliens, the detailed descriptions of the creatures and the intensity of the encounter fueled speculation. It became one of the most famous close encounters in UFO history, inspiring books, documentaries, and even a small festival in Hopkinsville that celebrates the bizarre story every year. What makes the Kelly Hopkinsville encounter so fascinating is not just the supposed appearance of extraterrestrial beings, but the way it reflects a very human reaction to the unknown: fear, confusion, and the desperate attempt to protect one's family. Whether you believe in aliens, goblins, or something in between, the events of that night continue to baffle investigators and thrill enthusiasts of the strange. Hopkinsville's goblins may have vanished into the Kentucky night, but their legend lives on, creeping through the woods, glowing in the dark, and haunting anyone who dares to look too closely at the unknown. To the mysteries of Mammoth Cave. Deep beneath the rolling hills of Kentucky lies Mammoth Cave, the largest cave system on Earth, stretching for more than 400 miles. But behind the beauty and geological wonder, there are stories. Stories of explorers who vanished, voices that echo where no human stands, and creatures people swear should not exist. Some of the cave's mysteries begin centuries ago. Early Native American artifacts found deep inside show that people were exploring the cave thousands of years before modern visitors, but many of those explorers never returned. Their remains have been discovered in narrow tunnels, sometimes in places nearly impossible for a person to reach. To this day, archaeologists can't explain how some bodies ended up where they were found. But the most chilling stories come from the 1800s, when Mammoth Cave became a tourist attraction. Guides working deep underground reported hearing footsteps behind them, only to turn around and see nothing. Lanterns would flicker, then go out completely, even when there was no breeze. One guide claimed he heard whispering voices in perfect English, coming from a sealed-off passage no one had entered in decades. One of the most famous mysteries involves a man named Floyd Collins. In 1925, Collins became trapped in a narrow passage while exploring an uncharted section of the cave system. Rescuers tried for days to reach him, but an unexpected cave-in blocked the tunnel. Collins died underground, still wedged in the rock. When his body was finally recovered, it was moved to a coffin and displayed in the cave for decades, until it was stolen by unknown intruders and later found miles away. No one ever figured out who took it or why. There are also stories of creatures, pale, eyeless animals, some documented by scientists, others described only in terrified whispers. People have reported seeing tall, thin shapes lurking deep in shadowed chambers. Some believe these are tricks of the light, while others swear there's something else entirely. Visitors have even claimed to hear the sound of someone breathing right next to them in total darkness. And then there's the Lost John mystery. In the early 1900s, the mummified body of a prehistoric explorer was discovered deep underground. His remains were incredibly well preserved, but after being displayed for years, reports began circulating that his body would shift positions on its own. Park staff eventually removed him from public view. With over 400 miles of passages, and many more undiscovered, Mammoth Cave holds secrets no one has fully explored. Strange voices, ancient deaths, missing explorers, and the feeling that something is always watching in the dark. Even today, new tunnels are found every year, and no one knows what waits at the deepest point of the cave, because no human has ever reached it. The Blue People of Kentucky. In the quiet hollows of eastern Kentucky, deep in the Appalachian Mountains, there once lived a family unlike any other. They were known as the Fugits, but the world would remember them as the Blue People of Kentucky. For generations, members of the Fugate family had skin that wasn't pink, tan, or pale, it was blue. Not light blue, not a tint. Full-on, noticeable, unmistakable blue skin. And for decades, no one could explain why. The story begins in the early 1800s with a man named Martin Fugate, a French immigrant who settled in the remote town of Hazard, Kentucky. According to local accounts, Martin himself may have carried a rare genetic trait, one so unusual that when he married a woman named Elizabeth Smith, who also carried this hidden trait, something extraordinary happened. Their children began to be born with blue skin. In a tiny, isolated mountain community, far removed from other towns, the Fugits intermarried with neighboring families, simply because there weren't many people around. That isolation allowed a rare genetic condition to survive and spread. Methemoglobinemia, a disorder that affects how blood carries oxygen. Instead of bright red, their blood had a chocolate brown tint, and their skin turned a striking shade of blue. The condition wasn't dangerous, but it was mysterious. Locals were terrified at first. Some believed the Fugits were cursed. Others whispered that they were supernatural. But the Blue family lived normal lives, farming, working, raising children, while the legend around them grew. It wasn't until the 1960s that the mystery was finally solved. A young hematologist named Dr. Madison Kawin traveled to the mountains after hearing rumors of blue people living in the hills. When he finally met the Fugits, he was stunned. Their skin wasn't exaggerated. It wasn't an old folktale. It was real. After running tests, he discovered the cause, a rare, recessive gene carried by both parents, made more common through generations of isolation. Even more incredible, Dr. Kawin found a treatment. A simple chemical called methylene blue could temporarily restore their skin color to normal by improving oxygen flow in the blood. For many Fugits, the change happened almost instantly. Their blue skin faded within hours, shocking the community and proving that the mystery wasn't supernatural at all. It was science. Today, almost none of the Fugate descendants have blue skin, as the family spread out and married outside the region. But their story remains one of the most fascinating medical mysteries in American history. The Blue People of Kentucky weren't a myth. They were real, and for over a century, their strange appearance baffled the world. until science finally uncovered the truth buried deep in the Appalachian Hills. The Spotsville Monster, Kentucky's Dogman Encounter. In the small town of Spotsville, Kentucky, a peaceful farming community hidden along the Green River, one family claims they were stalked by something unbelievable, something massive, something not human. This is the chilling story of the Spotsville Monster, Kentucky's own dogman. It began in the early 1970s, when the Nunn family moved into a quiet farmhouse surrounded by dense woods. At first, everything seemed normal, but within weeks, strange things started happening. The family would hear footsteps outside their home long after midnight, heavy and slow, as if something large was circling the house. Their dogs growled at the tree line, refusing to go outside after dark. Then came the sightings. One evening, one of the Nunn children looked out across the yard and froze. Standing near the edge of the woods was a creature taller than any man, covered in dark fur, with a long muzzle, pointed ears, and glowing yellow eyes. Stood upright, like a human, but its body was shaped like a huge wolf. When the child screamed, the creature didn't run. It simply stepped backward into the shadows and disappeared. Over the next few weeks, the sightings increased. Something began throwing rocks at the house at night, pounding on the walls and scratching at the doors. The family found deep claw marks etched into the sides of their barn, far too high for any normal animal. Even worse, their livestock began disappearing, one by one, leaving behind only shredded fencing and enormous tracks in the mud. Local hunters were called to investigate. They found prints so large they didn't match any known animal in Kentucky. Some believed it was a bear, others thought it was a deformed wolf, but the Nunn family insisted this thing wasn't walking on four legs. It walked like a man. One night, things escalated. The creature approached the house again, but this time, it stepped fully into the porch light. The family described it as nearly 7 feet tall, with long arms, hunched shoulders, and a face caught somewhere between a wolf and a human. It growled, a deep, rumbling sound that shook the windows, and vanished into the woods. Terrified, the Nunns eventually abandoned the farmhouse and moved away, but the sightings didn't stop. Neighbors reported the same creature lurking along the riverbanks, watching from the tree line with glowing eyes. To this day, locals still whisper about the Spotsville Monster. Some say it was a dogman, others say it was a Bigfoot variant, and some believe it still roams the forests of western Kentucky, waiting, watching, and stepping out only when darkness falls.